fascinating how a show like The Simpsons, which started as a simple animated sitcom, has repeatedly made headlines for seemingly predicting the future. From major political events to technological advancements, the show has managed to get some things eerily right. But why does this keep happening? Let's dive into some possible explanations and what it might say about both the show and the world we live in. 1. The power of satire and social commentary. First and foremost, The Simpsons is a show deeply rooted in satire and social commentary. The writers often take real-world trends, events, and behaviors and exaggerate them to create humorous but thought-provoking episodes. By doing so, they not only entertain, but also provide insights into the world we live in. Because they tap into the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times, they're often commenting on issues that are already on society's radar. Satire is a powerful tool because it allows people to laugh at serious issues while still reflecting on them. The Simpsons has mastered this by blending humor with criticism. When the show presents exaggerated versions of real-life situations, it holds up a mirror to society, encouraging viewers to think critically about the world around them. For instance, the episode where Donald Trump is depicted as president was created when Trump was a well-known public figure, but not a politician. At that time, the idea of Trump running for president might have seemed like a joke, a far-fetched scenario based on his public persona as a businessman and media figure. However, The Simpsons writers saw the potential for this idea to become reality because of Trump's influence and the changing political climate. This example highlights how The Simpsons doesn't just make wild guesses about the future. Instead, the show builds on existing social commentary, taking note of trends and attitudes that could lead to surprising outcomes. The Trump episode wasn't just a random prediction. It was rooted in a keen observation of how media, celebrity culture, and politics were evolving. Moreover, this kind of satire resonates with audiences because it's relatable. People see elements of truth in the exaggerated scenarios, which makes the humor more impactful. It's this blend of reality and exaggeration that gives The Simpsons its staying power and keeps it relevant even as the world changes. By addressing current issues with wit and insight, the show not only entertains, but also engages viewers in a deeper conversation about the direction society is heading. 2. The law of large numbers. Another explanation for The Simpsons' so-called predictions involves the concept known as the law of large numbers. This mathematical principle suggests that as you increase the number of trials or instances in a given situation, the results will tend to average out and reflect the underlying probabilities. Applied to The Simpsons, this means that when you produce hundreds of episodes over several decades, you're statistically likely to get a few predictions right just by sheer probability. Since its debut in 1989, The Simpsons has aired over 700 episodes, each packed with numerous cultural references, jokes, and scenarios. With such an extensive body of work, it's not surprising that some of the show's content might eventually align with real-world events. This isn't necessarily a matter of foresight or prophecy, but rather a natural outcome of producing so much content over time. In essence, if you make enough guesses, some of them are bound to hit the mark. Moreover, many of these predictions are not as specific or unique as they might appear at first glance. Take, for instance, the prediction of smartwatches. While The Simpsons did feature a character using a wristwatch with advanced features, this idea was a logical extension of the growing trend of wearable technology, which had been evolving for years. The concept of a device that combines timekeeping with communication and computing capabilities wasn't entirely novel, even at the time the episode aired. Many sci-fi shows and movies had already explored similar ideas. Similarly, the episode featuring a virus outbreak is often cited as predicting the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the idea of a global pandemic has been a recurring theme in both fiction and reality for centuries. The 2009 H1N1 influenza pandemic, the SARS outbreak in 2003, and even the Spanish flu of 1918 are all examples of real events that could be linked to such a storyline. The episode in question could be seen as referencing any of these events, rather than specifically predicting COVID-19. Adding to this, there's a psychological phenomenon known as confirmation bias, where people tend to focus on and remember information that confirms their pre-existing beliefs. When viewers see something on The Simpsons that appears to predict a real-world event, they might unconsciously ignore the hundreds of other scenarios that didn't come true, thereby reinforcing the idea that the show is prophetic. Additionally, there's the concept of retrospective determinism, which is the tendency to view past events as having been inevitable. Once something happens, it's easy to look back and find connections that might not have been significant at the time. In the context of The Simpsons, once an event occurs, viewers might search for any episode that vaguely resembles the event and label it a prediction, even if the connection is tenuous. These explanations underscore the importance of understanding how probability, psychology, and the sheer volume of content can lead to the perception of accurate predictions. The Simpsons isn't a crystal ball, but rather a show that, by the law of large numbers and human cognitive biases, occasionally aligns with reality in ways that seem more remarkable than they truly are. 3. The influence of predictive programming. There's an intriguing theory known as predictive programming, which posits that media like The Simpsons might not only forecast future events, but could actually influence them. This theory suggests that by embedding certain ideas, scenarios, or themes within popular TV shows, these concepts become subtly ingrained in the public consciousness, potentially making them more likely to manifest in reality. In other words, the media might be shaping the future rather than just predicting it. At first glance, this idea may seem far-fetched, almost like a conspiracy theory. However, when you consider the profound impact that media has on public opinion, behavior, and even policy, the concept starts to hold some weight. The media is a powerful tool for disseminating information, shaping perceptions, and influencing societal norms. When a widely watched show like The Simpsons presents a particular idea or scenario, it can normalize that concept, making it more conceivable or even desirable to its audience. For instance, if a show repeatedly depicts a certain technology, political outcome, or social trend, it might begin to feel inevitable to viewers. Over time, the public's perception of what is possible or likely can shift, which could, in turn, influence real-world decisions by policymakers, innovators, or even ordinary individuals. This phenomenon can be seen in various aspects of society. Consider how science fiction has influenced technological innovation. Ideas like mobile phones, virtual reality, and even space exploration were once the domain of sci-fi, but are now part of our reality. One could argue that The Simpsons, with its global reach and long-standing presence in popular culture, could contribute to this process. By presenting certain events or technologies as if they were already integrated into society, the show might help to pave the way for their actual adoption. For example, the show's depiction of smartwatches or video calling may have contributed, even in a small way, to the public's readiness to accept these technologies when they eventually became available. Moreover, the concept of predictive programming aligns with the psychological theory of the self-fulfilling prophecy. This theory suggests that if people believe something is going to happen, their actions, often unconsciously, might lead to its occurrence. If enough people see a certain scenario play out on a show like The Simpsons and internalize it as a possibility, their collective behavior could nudge reality in that direction. A related idea is the availability heuristic, a psychological concept where people judge the likelihood of events based on how easily they can recall similar examples from memory. If a scenario is portrayed on The Simpsons and then a similar event occurs in real life, viewers might overestimate how likely that scenario was to begin with, reinforcing the perception that the show predicted the event. While the theory of predictive programming remains speculative and is often debated, it does highlight the significant influence media can have on our thoughts, beliefs, and actions. Whether or not The Simpsons is actively shaping the future, the show undeniably reflects and amplifies the cultural currents of its time, potentially influencing the course of events in subtle ways. The interplay between media and reality is complex, and while The Simpsons might not be a crystal ball, its influence on both viewers and the world at large is undeniable. For research and data behind the predictions. To understand how The Simpsons seemingly predicts future events, it's important to delve into research and data that shed light on this phenomenon. One key study published in 2016 in Television and New Media examined how The Simpsons effectively uses satire to comment on politics, society, and culture. The study concluded that the show's success in blending fiction with reality plays a crucial role in its enduring relevance. By taking real-world events and exaggerating them, The Simpsons creates a satirical narrative that resonates with audiences while also blurring the lines between imagination and reality. This blending can sometimes make it appear as though the show is predicting future events, when, in fact, it is commenting on trends that are already emerging. For instance, the infamous episode where The Simpsons depicted Donald Trump as the President of the United States was rooted in his existing public persona and his influence in the media long before he ever ran for office. The idea wasn't plucked out of thin air, It was an exaggerated take on a figure who was already making waves in the public consciousness. When Trump eventually became president, it felt like The Simpsons had predicted it, but in reality, they had simply tapped into a cultural moment that was already unfolding. Additionally, a 2017 article in The New Yorker explored how many of the show's so-called predictions were based on real-life events or trends that were already in motion. For example, the episode where a malfunctioning voting machine changes a vote from Obama to McCain wasn't just a wild guess. It was based on genuine concerns about the reliability of electronic voting machines at the time. This reflects a broader pattern where the show's writers take existing anxieties or issues and amplify them for comedic effect. When these issues later manifest in real life, it can seem like The Simpsons had foreseen them, but they were actually commenting on the potential outcomes of these pre-existing concerns. This idea is further supported by the concept of retrospective prediction, where people look back at past events and reinterpret them in a way that fits their current understanding. In the case of The Simpsons, viewers might remember certain episodes after a real-world event occurs and draw connections that seem prophetic, even if those connections are more coincidental than intentional. This selective memory reinforces the perception that the show is predicting the future, when in fact, it's often just reflecting or exaggerating trends that were already evident. Moreover, the show's long history and vast number of episodes, over 700 to date, create a statistical likelihood that some of its content will align with future events. This concept ties into the law of large numbers, where the sheer volume of content increases the probability of occasional accurate predictions. With so many scenarios played out over decades, it's almost inevitable that some will mirror real-life events, especially when those scenarios are grounded in ongoing societal trends. In essence, while it might be tempting to view The Simpsons as a crystal ball for future events, the reality is more grounded in the show's deep engagement with contemporary culture, politics, and societal issues. The research and data suggest that the show's predictive power is less about prophecy and more about its acute awareness of the world it inhabits, combined with a bit of probability and the human tendency to find patterns in hindsight. 5. Cultural reflection, or true prediction. When examining whether The Simpsons is truly predicting the future or merely reflecting cultural trends, it's essential to consider the unique role the show plays in both entertainment and social commentary. The Simpsons serves as a mirror to society, capturing the essence of current events, popular beliefs, and emerging trends. The brilliance of the show lies in its ability to exaggerate these elements, often to the point where fiction feels eerily close to reality. One key aspect of this is the writer's talent for recognizing subtle shifts in society and extrapolating them into possible future scenarios. For instance, the episode where The Simpsons foresaw the construction of a skyscraper in London, resembling the Shard, wasn't just a wild guess. It was likely inspired by ongoing architectural trends and the city's continuous modernization. The fact that this episode aired years before the actual building was completed speaks to the show's knack for picking up on real-world developments before they fully unfold. However, it's important to understand that The Simpsons doesn't operate as a predictive tool, but rather as a cultural barometer. The show's ability to predict events can often be attributed to its deep engagement with the world around it. The writers immerse themselves in the issues, concerns, and ideas that are circulating in society. They then craft episodes that push these ideas to their logical and sometimes absurd conclusions. This approach can create the illusion of prophecy, especially when these exaggerated scenarios later come to pass in the real world. This concept ties into the idea of cultural forecasting, where media and entertainment not only reflect current societal trends, but also influence and shape them. By presenting certain ideas or scenarios, The Simpsons may contribute to making those ideas more conceivable or even desirable to the public. For example, the episode that predicted the acquisition of 20th Century Fox by Disney was grounded in the real-world trend of media consolidation, which was already a topic of discussion in the industry. When the merger eventually happened, it seemed as though the show had predicted it, but in reality, it was commenting on a trend that many in the industry were aware of. Moreover, the concept of self-fulfilling prophecy can also play a role in how people perceive The Simpsons' predictions. When a widely watched show like The Simpsons presents a particular idea, it can influence how people think and act, possibly even contributing to that idea becoming a reality. For instance, the depiction of smartwatches on the show may have contributed to normalizing the concept of wearable technology, making it more acceptable and desirable to consumers and developers alike. Another theory to consider is the idea of cognitive bias, particularly confirmation bias, where people are more likely to notice and remember instances that confirm their beliefs while ignoring those that don't. Fans of The Simpsons might focus on the instances where the show predicted the future, while overlooking the countless scenarios that never came to fruition. This selective memory reinforces the idea that the show is a predictor of future events, even though the reality is more complex. In conclusion, while it's tempting to view The Simpsons as a prophetic series, it's more accurate to see it as a show deeply rooted in cultural reflection. The predictions that do come true are often the result of astute observation and the natural unfolding of trends that were already in motion. In this sense, The Simpsons is less about predicting the future and more about holding up a mirror to the present, with just enough exaggeration to make us think twice about the direction we're headed. The fact that some of these exaggerated scenarios later align with real events says as much about the predictable patterns in society as it does about the show's creative genius. While it's fun to marvel at The Simpsons' predictions, it's important to remember that the show's primary goal is to entertain, not to foresee the future. However, the fact that it occasionally does get things right is a testament to the writer's ability to capture the essence of the times and project it into the future. Whether these predictions are due to luck, insight, or a mix of both, they certainly add to the show's legacy and keep audiences fascinated year after year.